Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here in Vienna. And also, I've been very interested to hear all of the stories and all of the presentations today because I'm actually coming from a different side of the sustainability story and coming from a very large hospitality company. And you were working on projects for small and medium enterprises. And I think, putting those two perspectives together will be useful. It was very useful for me to hear what you can do with passion and sort of thinking about your own immediate environment. I will try to tell you a little bit more how we approached becoming more sustainable at a large organization. So Valamar is the biggest hospitality company in Croatia. But we also like to say that we are the biggest Austrian hospitality company because our main shareholders are actually Austrian. So we feel both Austrian and Croatian. We have a big portfolio in Croatia. We also have 3 hotels in Obertauern in Austria. So we are present in both markets. In Croatia, we have over 50,000 beds in resorts and campsites, over 50 different properties, all on the Adriatic coast, along from north to south, from Istria to Dubrovnik. In a normal year, we receive over 1 million guests in our properties. We are the largest and rated the best employer in tourism in Croatia. We employed over 7,500 employees last year. We're also a very big investor in tourism, so we have been investing heavily into the portfolio and upscaling the portfolio for the last 20 years. These investments are now totaling over 1 billion euros. Last year, we managed to fully recover to pre-COVID levels, so our business was at around over 300 million euros. So this just to give you a sense of the size. We have always felt that sustainability is at the core of good tourism, not just at the core of what we do as a company, but tourism without sustainability just doesn't make sense, I think. And this is now, luckily, something that we all understand in this room, and I don't think I have to talk about it much more. But tourism is about preserving the environment, preserving the local culture, preserving the local communities, and giving even more value to those stakeholders. That's what tourism should be about. If it's doing the opposite, if it's actually destroying value for those stakeholders, then we don't need tourism. Then it's not really making our life better. But it wasn't always called sustainability, at least not in our, let's say, business circles. 15 years ago, when Valamar started investing, it was called energy efficiency and energy management, or wastewater treatment management, or we were doing corporate social responsibility projects. So the naming has changed, but what has really remained and what is, I think, still true is that this is a long process. You've heard this today before. It's a long process, and for us at Valamar, it's not something new. It's not a buzzword. It's not a trend. The fact that we have an ESG strategy and ESG goals and that we have committed to becoming a carbon neutral company, it's not something that we just woke up and did in 2022. So that's what I wanted you to understand. For the last, essentially almost 20 years, we have been thinking about how can we be a better tourism company, not only on the side of protecting the environment, but also how can we be a better employer, how can we contribute to our destinations, how can we invest in the development of the destinations, and we have been actively doing that. And since 2015, Valamar started reporting and communicating very actively around the Sustainable Development Goals that you heard earlier. So the 17 Sustainable Development Goals have been a framework for us as well to communicate what we're doing. We have been reporting on the basis of GRI principles since 2015. And in that time, we have invested over 50 million euros in all of these different initiatives where we say, you know, it would be great to do something about the beaches in the destination near our hotels. These beaches are not owned by the company. They are a public good. They are important to our guests, but they're also important to the community. So that is the kind of thinking I think that we're talking about today. And whether you're a very small company or you're a very large company, that's basically the core of it. How can we make something better that is not necessarily directly in our balance sheet or in our P&L? So I think I will skip through this a little bit because we had a very excellent talk this morning about the climate crisis. It's here, it's not going well, we're not doing well. We will probably have to face the consequences, but that's why it's very important that we all do what we can do to lower our CO2 emissions. But there are other things that are important and that we need to consider as actors in the tourism industry, is that there are social challenges, that the climate crisis will bring a lot of social challenges. And also, there are other reasons why we're facing many social challenges. We all know in this room now that we already have a very challenging, changing labor market. And this will probably become even more difficult with all the different changes that are happening globally, socially, economically, etc. Also, in Europe, here in this part of the world, we have an aging demographics, which are also a significant challenge for especially our industry, which is based on people and based on service. We have the new young generations that have different expectations. We have a lot of social tensions. We have immigration. So there are a lot of things that we could talk about, but essentially what's important is that sustainability is about meeting these challenges head on. So we as a company, when we think about sustainability, we don't just think about the environment. We think about the social aspect of sustainability. It's very important to keep growing our organization, to focus on the development of employees, to focus on the community at large. For example, we just recently, with one of our main destinations, Poreču in Istria, we opened, together with the city, we opened a new kindergarten in one of our hotels because the city was lacking infrastructure for a kindergarten. And this is a problem for both our employees, when we are growing in numbers, but also for the community. So what do we do as a company? We don't just say, hey, you are the mayor, go fix this problem. We actually sit down and we try to fix it together. And I think that's the point of thinking sustainably and thinking about us as stakeholders, as your wider community. And that's basically what can bring us to good solutions, whether we are doing this on a small scale or a larger scale. Also, what's important, I call this trust, but I think we've heard it in different ways today. Basically, if people don't trust us as leaders, managers, owners of hotels, or any other role, if they don't trust what you are saying, you can forget about everything else. And so the ESG framework has this G inside that people maybe don't think is so important. It's very important. It's about trust. It stands for governance. But basically, you have to have good governance. You have to have certificates. You have to have different policies. You have to be able to say what you stand for and really stand behind what you are saying if you want people to trust you. If you have, for example, I don't know, the Volkswagen emissions scandal, this is a good example of really bad governance. Of course, bad ethics, bad leadership, whatever you want to call it. But one single episode like that can destroy everything you do as a company for years, all the other maybe good things that you are doing. So it's really important to build trust, to be transparent, to really be ethical, to stick to your values. And for a large company, this might be harder than for a small business, because a small business is really reflecting the owners and their ethics. For a large company, we are a big organization, and so we have to have good governance, good processes, good policies, clear structures, clear standards, and we have to have values and ethics in order to motivate people and to ensure that they really understand that this is important, and then it's not just a dead letter on a piece of paper. Another reason why sustainable tourism is important, this is, I think, interesting. It will be interesting to all of you. So we have, as I said, about 1 million guests in our properties every year. And we have a very large database of guests who are also returning and with whom we continuously communicate. And so we asked them, you know, is sustainability important to you? Before we set out to create this ESG strategy, we thought, well, let's ask our loyal guests, you know, is this even important to them? How important is it to you? And we were really surprised on the basis of this survey at the answers we got. So 78% said that they actually consider sustainability on a daily basis in daily decisions they make. So, for example, they go to the store and they're buying groceries for their home. So a lot larger percentage than we expected. 66% of them said that sustainability is important or very important to them when they're planning a holiday. Again, 2/3, a lot more than we expected. And 50% of them said we check whether the accommodation is sustainable and how much they're doing on what they are doing on the sustainability side before we book our holiday. Again, quite a high percentage. About 1/3 of them also said that they're willing to pay more. But since this was not a huge statistical study, we decided that maybe that answer is not yet proven, but it was an interesting also indication of how important this topic is to our customers. It's important to us here in the room, so we can, I think, assume that it's important to a larger group of people. And so, with all this in mind, last year we said what we now need at Valamar is not just a series of investments and projects and things that we were doing with the community. What we need is a strategy around ESG, and we need to really structure this entire area because it's becoming an integral part of our business model and of our business strategy. So we decided that we would publish the strategy, which we hadn't done before, and that we would publish specific goals for the company until 2025. And on purpose, we didn't want to use 2030, which is the usual goal, because we thought, you know, let's do something really concrete. Let's be very specific about the goal. 2030 seems far away for most management teams. We don't have contracts that last until 2030. So we said, let's see what we can do until 2025 and be really specific about it. So I will show you. So that's just a short summary of where we were in 2022. And then we went through the whole process. I will tell you a few words about the process of creating this strategy before I show it to you. So the process was very much bottom-up. It was looking at the sustainable development goals, looking at our different business activities, investments that we are doing, the market and the research of the customers, the energy area and how to actually produce more renewable energy. All of these areas we had already had projects in. Local food, as you can see, we were already tracking how much local food we're using in our hotels and resorts. But so to reach these main goals, we went bottom up, and we actually collected 100 different measurable indicators across all our properties and across these different dimensions, environment, social, and governance. Then we narrowed it down to 52, and then we narrowed those down to 12, which we published. The 12 are published. The rest of the 50 KPIs we keep tracking in every department and business, and those help us manage sustainability in the organization. And then to sum it all up, we said, let's come up with the two things that I can say at a conference and everybody will remember. Two main goals until 2025, carbon neutrality for Valamar as a whole and in scope 1 and 2, and all together another 50 million euros invested in destinations and social impact. And behind these two goals are very specific plans, activities, initiatives, budgets, resources, etc. So I think that's, for me, maybe the main point of what you can learn from a large company is when you decide what you want to do, make a plan, measure it, and just go on your way. Don't keep the sustainability topic somewhere up in the clouds as something that sounds nice or is something that's nice to do. Be specific. I think it was a very good example, Miss Reiter's hotel, where they basically took the SDGs, which are very, very wide. They say, oh, we want to reduce poverty, but they narrowed it down to something that they can do about poverty. Maybe you help the soup kitchen down the street once a month. You are helping to reduce poverty. So that's what we did. We came up with these 7 initiatives. The first 3 are built around the environment, so the E part of the ESG strategy. One is specifically on protecting the climate. Number 2 is taking care of the Adriatic, which is a really important natural resource and biosystem for us, biodiversity in general, so in the areas where our hotels and resorts are located, and food with this high focus on local sourcing. And another focus point is sustainable seafood, where we want to achieve certain percentage of sustainable seafood in the whole supply chain by 2025. But then the other initiatives, especially number 4 and number 5, are the social ones, and they're equally important. One is all about employees, but not just the usual, let's train employees, recruit them, and bring them into our organization. It's much wider than that. How can we make sure that they have a better quality of life as a company? What can we do so that they stay in tourism as a career and that they have families and they can live better in our destinations? That's the challenge. It's not that we have all the answers, but we set that as the goal, not just, having employees do a good job while they're with you. We have a challenge, like in Austria, in Croatia, it's the same challenge to find employees and also to keep them in tourism and to keep them happy in tourism. And this is going to be, I think, more and more challenging as we go forward, because the jobs in tourism are hard, and young people want a different kind of work-life balance. So we are going to have to reinvent these jobs. They will look different than they did 5 years ago. And so we're investing a lot in housing for our staff. We're investing, as I said, in community projects, and really trying all kinds of programs in terms of awards, etc., to keep our employees with us. They are really our most important resource. And then we have the destination initiative, which is focused on supporting the local communities, also working with schools in local communities, partnering with other educational institutions, investing further in tourism infrastructure. So we have invested a lot in bike and biking paths, in e-chargers for bikes in the destination, not just in our hotels. We have invested in beaches, as I said, in sports infrastructure, in paths for running, you know, all kinds of projects that contribute to the quality of the experience of the destination, not just the hotel. And I think that's going to be more and more important as we go forward. And then governance, as I said, certifications, what you did, the process you went through to actually pick a certification and go through it. You now understand what it brings and why it's important. And for us, it's also very important because it just keeps pushing the whole organization forward. Number 7 is down there somewhere in the corner, but it's also very important. We realized we were doing a lot, and we weren't really talking about it so much. We were, you know, busy working on a lot of projects and sustainability, but we weren't telling our guests what we were doing. We weren't actually promoting the hotels as sustainable properties, and so that's what we have a whole campaign now for the first time this year. Communicating what we're doing, but not just communicating, trying to get the guests to be involved, and so activating and engaging the guests into those activities. So here I will not, I don't have a lot of time, so I will not go through a lot of the details, but essentially for each of the 3 areas, environment, social, and governance, we have come up with these top-level goals, so let's say the most key goals, the most important measurable goals. And we also have a lot of activities already now in 2023, which are helping us to reach those goals. So in, protecting the climate and carbon neutrality, we're investing in solar. We're now at 6% of own renewable energy produced in Valamar, in our properties. We are trying to reach 15% by 2025, so we will keep investing. Our main goal in the initiative on the Adriatic Sea and the coastline biodiversity, etc., is built around the seawater quality and the quality of the beaches, which now 18 of our beaches have the blue flag. We are also investing in those beaches. We're also investing in the 80,000 trees that we already own in our properties, and every year we're planting thousands more. Last year we did it together with the guests. That was also very successful. We asked the guests, would you contribute €4? And we'll plant a tree here in Croatia. And we get no offsets for that, no carbon credits, because you have to plant them in developing countries if you want carbon credits. But still, our guests were very happy to continue planting and to keep the biodiversity around their properties. We're very focused on waste. We're doing a lot in not only recycling, separation, but in biocomposting, which I think is very interesting for our industry, and reduces food waste, but also it creates soil, which you can use then for further planting. And we are quite close in our more premium properties to really be at 0 single-use plastics. I think by 2025 we will manage it for the entire portfolio. In social, the main, as I said, area are the employees, and one of the main measurable KPIs, so goals that we have set for ourselves, we said we want to keep the percent of domestic employees, so those coming from Croatia, high. And 5 years ago, that was 95%. Last year, it was 88%. So, in a very short period of time, we just do not have enough employees to work in tourism in Croatia anymore. And so we will be at somewhere around 80% domestic employees this year. And this is great. Our goal is 70%, because actually with the demographic changes and the growth of the company and the investments that are planned, we do not think that we cannot keep the current share of domestic employees. But At the same time, this is a challenging goal, and so we will do a lot for local employees to keep them. What else? There are some good projects that we're doing this year. We're investing a lot, as I said, in the staff houses. We have also started a campaign around Valamar as an employer. So I think this was something that you did in one of your groups. Employer branding is important, and it will become more and more important for employers in tourism. And in governance, lots of certificates. We have 20 different ones. You have now gone through this process. The first energy management certificate in Valamar was back in 2009. We are now quite covered in the different areas. We also have the first completely green-built resort on the Adriatic, which we opened last year on the island of Hvar. So on the construction side, we're also certifying what we are doing. Our goal for 2025 is to get a gold rating from EcoVadis, which is the rating company that we have chosen, and we're working towards that. One of the main things that are left to do for all of us, it's a big challenge, is how do we look at scope 3, so-called scope 3 emissions. So your direct emissions of CO2 are easy to calculate, and they are related to the energy that you use. But we all have indirect emissions from our supply chain, and we all have the goal of reducing those by 50% by 2030, according to, let's say, the EU framework. And that's what we're starting to work on this year, is to understand emissions from our supply chain and to try to figure out the path towards reducing those, which will be, I think, a bigger challenge than the direct emissions that we have. But it's something that's actually going to contribute more than our direct emissions. And this is just an example of our communication to the guests. We came up with this slogan, it's in our nature, and under this umbrella, and under the umbrella of our Green Holiday program, we communicate a lot about what we do or what we would like the guests to do. It's in our nature to reuse, or it's in our nature to care, or it's in our nature to serve the best from nature, which is related to the food that we have on the table. So this has become a kind of umbrella communication brand and program that we are rolling out in all the properties. And I think this is also very important because, as I said in the beginning, the guests really want to know and they care. And they want to know what you're doing on the sustainability front. So all in all, I think you've seen in the video some of our achievements so far. We are proud of what we have done so far. So the fact that we have 100% green electricity, that we have decreased our CO2 footprint by 70% since 2015. We have gotten some good awards as a climate leader. We would like to keep being perceived as a leader, which means we need to find new challenges and really address them head on to maybe help the whole industry and all of tourism to be more sustainable. Because, as I said, I don't think we really have any kind of alternative. Thank you.